The silent predator. The void of space stretched endlessly around the Galactic Confederation's flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Admiral Zelvac stood tall on the command bridge, his six-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the stars. For 3 centuries, the Confederation had ruled the known galaxy with unwavering authority. Their technological superiority and ruthless military tactics had subdued hundreds of worlds, erasing entire civilizations that dared to oppose them. "Status report," Zelvac commanded, his voice carrying the weight of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Commander Thraxa approached, her scaled skin reflecting the soft blue light of the ship's controls. "All systems nominal. Admiral, the Outer Patrol Fleet reports no unusual activity in sectors 4 through 17. Zelvac nodded, satisfied. The peace of dominance was a sweet thing. No resistance, no rebellion, just the comfortable knowledge that the Confederation's will was absolute law across the stars. But that peace was about to be shattered. "Admiral," a young officer's voice cut through the quiet hum of the bridge. "We're detecting an anomaly in the restricted zone. Coordinates 557 to 982,344. Zelvac frowned. The restricted zone was an ancient quarantine area, established long before his time. The official records claimed it contained dangerous spatial distortions, but few knew the truth. It was the place where old Earth had once stood, the homeworld of the humans who had been thought extinct for centuries. What kind of anomaly? Zelvac moved swiftly to the detection station. The officer's hands trembled slightly as he manipulated the controls. "It appears to be a spatial distortion, sir, but it's organized. Deliberate, like a tear forming in the fabric of space itself." On the display, a swirling vortex of energy was taking shape in the emptiness. Colors that shouldn't exist in vacuum spiraled outward, creating a hypnotic pattern that seemed to bend the light around it. "Dispatch the 7th Fleet to investigate," Zelvac ordered, a strange unease creeping up his spine. "Full combat readiness." Within minutes, 20 warships broke formation and accelerated toward the anomaly, their engines blazing against the darkness. These weren't ordinary vessels. They were the pride of the Confederation, planet killers capable of reducing entire worlds to molten slag. As the fleet approached the anomaly, Communications Officer Lyrex reported, "Sir, we're receiving no response to our hails." "Continue approach," Fleet Commander Droxa ordered from the lead vessel. Weapons charged and ready. The fleet slowed as they reached the edges of the spatial distortion. The vortex had stabilized now, a perfect circle of swirling energy suspended in the void. Its center was absolute darkness, a hole in reality itself. "Scanning," Science Officer Vrax announced, his voice betraying his fascination. "I'm detecting movement within the anomaly." The bridge crew watched in silence as the darkness at the center of the vortex began to shift. Something was emerging, something massive and black, sliding into normal space like a predator gliding from its den. First came the prow, angular, aggressive, and adorned with what appeared to be ancient battle scars. Then the main body, a behemoth of metal and technology, unlike anything seen in Confederate space. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Confederation's largest dreadnought, and its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "What is that?" Droxa whispered. As if in answer, the massive vessel completed its emergence from the vortex. It hung there, silent and menacing, its presence alone seeming to distort the space around it. No markings adorned its hull except for a single symbol near what appeared to be the command center, a stylized image of a planet with a sword piercing through it. A symbol from ancient history, one that sent chills through the spines of those few who recognized it. "Earth. It can't be," Lyrex breathed. "They were exterminated during the purge." Before anyone could respond, the sensors blared warnings across every ship in the fleet. The mysterious vessel was powering up, not weapons, but something else. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels, surpassing anything Confederate science had ever recorded. Evasive maneuvers. Droxa shouted, but it was too late. A pulse of invisible energy swept outward from the human ship, washing over the Confederate fleet like a silent tsunami. And then, nothing. No destruction, no damage, not even a communications disruption. Status report. Droxa demanded. All systems operational. His second-in-command replied, confusion evident in her voice. Whatever that was, it didn't harm us. Relief lasted only seconds before the truth became apparent. When Droxa ordered the fleet to fall back to defensive positions, nothing happened. The ships remained perfectly still, suspended in space as if frozen in time. Engines not responding, came the panicked report. Weapons systems offline. Navigation controls locked. Throughout the fleet, the same crisis was unfolding. Every ship, every system had been completely paralyzed by the mysterious pulse. They were dead in space, helpless before the enormous vessel. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zelvax watched in horror as the reports flooded in. His elite fleet, the most powerful fighting force in the galaxy, had been neutralized without firing a single shot. "Sir," Thraxa said, her voice barely audible, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel." The main view screen flickered to life, and the bridge fell silent. The being on the screen was unmistakably human. A species not seen in the galaxy for centuries. Tall, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages, he wore a simple gray uniform adorned only with that same planetary emblem. "Attention, vessels of the Galactic Confederation," the human said, his voice deep and resonant. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Vessel Remembrance. Your ships have been temporarily neutralized as a precautionary measure. We mean you no harm, provided you offer none in return." Zelvax stepped forward, struggling to maintain his composure. "This is Admiral Zelvax of the Galactic Confederation. You have committed an act of war against our forces. Identify your purpose and release our vessels immediately." The human's expression remained unchanged. "Your confederation declared war on humanity 300 years ago, Admiral. We are simply returning from a very long tactical retreat." "Impossible," Zelvax hissed. "Humanity was eradicated during the Purge. Earth was destroyed." A smile touched Chen's lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Is that what your history tells you? Your predecessors were thorough, I'll grant them that. They destroyed our colonies, bombarded our homeworld, and declared us extinct. But they missed something crucial about humans, Admiral." He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to an almost intimate tone. "We are very, very hard to kill." The bridge was deathly quiet as the implication sank in. If humans had survived the Purge, if they had been rebuilding in secret all this time, "What do you want?" Zelvax finally asked, the question hanging in the air like a death sentence. "Justice," Chen replied simply. "Recognition. And the chance to rejoin a galaxy that tried to murder us." "And if we refuse?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. "Then we will demonstrate why your ancestors feared humanity enough to try to exterminate us. The paralysis affecting your ships is temporary. Think of it as a gesture of good faith. When control returns, you have a choice. Return to your capital and inform your leadership that humanity has returned and seeks peaceful diplomatic relations. Or—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Behind him, the vortex flared again, widening to an impossible size. And through it came more ships. Dozens, then hundreds, a seemingly endless armada of human warships, each as black and imposing as the Remembrance. "We will await your response," Chen said before the transmission cut. As the screen went dark, Admiral Zelvax stared at the fleet of human vessels now surrounding his paralyzed ships. For the first time in his long career, he felt something that no Confederation officer was ever supposed to feel. Fear. The legends were true. Humanity had survived. And they had returned. Part 2. Awakening the ghosts. The Grand Council chamber on Axteris Prime had never been so silent. 12 representatives from the dominant species of the Galactic Confederation sat around the circular table, their faces illuminated by the holographic display at the center. The display showed the human fleet, hundreds of ships hanging in the void near the restricted zone, motionless but unmistakably ready. Supreme Chancellor Vexel, a tall, willowy being with paper-thin skin that revealed the complex network of veins beneath, stood with his hands pressed against the table. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his normally melodious voice strained. "Humanity was destroyed. We all learned the history. The Great Purge was thorough." Admiral Zelvax, still shaken from his encounter with the human captain, cleared his throat. "The official records may have been incomplete, Chancellor. It appears a significant portion of humanity escaped our ancestors' efforts to eliminate them. And they've been hiding all this time?" General Kravna asked, her reptilian eyes narrowing. "For 3 centuries, building their forces, planning their return." "It would seem so," Zelvax confirmed. The room erupted in anxious murmurs. The implications were staggering. The Confederation had built its empire on the ashes of conquered civilizations, but none had ever returned from extinction to challenge them. Chancellor Vexel raised a hand for silence. "What do we know about their capabilities? You said your entire fleet was paralyzed without suffering any damage." Zelvax nodded grimly. "Some kind of advanced electromagnetic pulse, but far beyond our technology. It didn't just disable our systems, it locked them. Our best engineers are still trying to understand how it works." "And their demands?" "Diplomatic recognition, a place in the galaxy again. Justice for the Purge." Vexel's face darkened. Justice. That would implicate half the founding species of the Confederation in war crimes. Unacceptable. The ancient historian Qualix, rarely present at military councils, spoke up from the corner of the room. His voice was thin with age, but carried the weight of centuries of study. "Perhaps we should consider why our ancestors feared humanity so much that they attempted genocide," he suggested. All eyes turned to him. The pre-Confederation archives contain fragments of information about humans, Qualix continued. They were physiologically unremarkable. No natural weapons, average strength, limited sensory capabilities, but they possessed something our ancestors found terrifying: adaptability. He manipulated his personal device, and new images appeared in the holographic display, ancient footage of early human history. In less than 10,000 years, a blink in evolutionary terms, they went from primitive tool users to interstellar travelers. No other species has ever developed so quickly, and when faced with challenges, they exhibited a unique trait. They became stronger, not weaker. The footage showed humans in various crisis situations, natural disasters, wars, ecological collapse, and each time rising from the destruction to build something greater. Our ancestors believed that if humanity continued to advance at their exponential rate, they would dominate the galaxy within a millennium. The Purge wasn't just conquest, it was preventative. "And now they're back," General Kravna said, "with technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive." The implications hung in the air like a knife. Chancellor Vexel straightened. "We will not surrender to these ghosts. The Confederation controls thousands of worlds. We have resources, shipyards, armies. If humanity wants war, we shall oblige them." Several council members nodded in agreement, but Zelvax felt a cold certainty in his core. They didn't understand what they were facing. Far from the council chamber, in the depths of space, the human fleet maintained its position. Aboard the Remembrance, Captain Chen sat in his command chair, eyes closed as if in meditation. "They're mobilizing their fleets," his first officer, Commander Amara Singh, reported. "Long-range sensors detect movement from 17 major Confederation bases." Chen opened his eyes. "As expected, they've built their empire on domination. They don't know any other path. The diplomatic option. We offered it. They refused. Chen's voice held no anger, only a quiet resignation. Prepare the awakening protocol. Throughout the human fleet, crews moved with practiced precision. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were the descendants of those who had escaped the purge, raised on stories of their lost homeworld, and trained from birth for this moment. On Axteris Prime, the Confederation's response force was assembling. Over 1,000 warships, the largest fleet ever deployed in the history of their empire. High Commander Zithras addressed his captains from the flagship Inevitable Victory. These humans have surprised us with their survival and their technology, he acknowledged. But they are still flesh and blood. They are still mortal, and they are outnumbered. We will crush this insurrection and finish what our ancestors began. The cheers of his officers echoed through the communication channels, but Zithras noticed that Admiral Zelvax remained silent, his expression troubled. You disagree, Admiral, Zithras challenged. Zelvax chose his words carefully. I believe we may be underestimating our opponent, Commander. Their technology is unlike anything I've ever encountered. Technology alone doesn't win wars, Zithras replied dismissively. Numbers do, power does, and we have both. The Confederation fleet departed with great fanfare, its massive engines illuminating the skies of Axteris Prime as citizens watched with patriotic pride. Victory was assured. The news networks said so. The military leadership said so. The Chancellor himself said so. 3 days later, when the fleet arrived at the designated coordinates near the restricted zone, they found the human vessels waiting in perfect formation. Despite being outnumbered nearly 5-1, the black ships showed no signs of retreat or fear. All ships, weapons free, Zithras commanded. Target the lead vessel and fire on my mark. Across 1,000 ships, targeting systems locked onto the Remembrance. Energy weapons charged, missile bays opened. The combined firepower was enough to shatter a small moon. Fire. The space between the fleets lit up as energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human flagship. For a moment, it seemed as if the massive vessel would be vaporized instantly under such an assault. Instead, something impossible happened. The space around the Remembrance rippled, like heat waves rising from desert sand. Every beam, every missile, simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed. They ceased to exist the moment they entered the distortion field. Impossible, Zithras whispered. On the Remembrance, Captain Chen stood. They've made their choice, he said quietly. Initiate the awakening. Throughout the human fleet, a signal was transmitted, not to the ships, but to something else entirely. Something waiting. Deep in Confederation space, on dozens of worlds simultaneously, the ground began to tremble. On military bases, in major cities, near crucial infrastructure, the earth split open and massive structures rose from below, structures that had been hidden there for decades, waiting. They were obelisks of the same black material as the human ships, each inscribed with the Earth emblem. As they reached their full height, each standing nearly a kilometer tall, they began to pulse with energy. Back in the battle zone, Commander Singh reported, Awakening protocol activated. All seeders online. Chen nodded. Send the message. His words were transmitted not just to the Confederation fleet, but to every communication device in Confederation space, overriding all security protocols as if they didn't exist. People of the Galactic Confederation, Chen began, his image appearing on screens across thousands of worlds. 300 years ago, your ancestors attempted to erase humanity from existence. They failed. We escaped. We survived. We rebuilt. And now we have returned. On the inevitable victory, Zithras watched in growing horror as reports flooded in about the mysterious obelisks appearing across Confederation space. For centuries, we have been seeding your worlds with our technology, Chen continued. The obelisks you now see rising are demonstration units. They cannot harm you, but they could have. At any point in the last 100 years, we could have activated them as weapons. We chose not to. The implications were clear. Humanity had infiltrated the heart of the Confederation long ago. They could have destroyed them from within, but had deliberately refrained. "We do not seek revenge for the purge," Chen said, his voice softening slightly. "We seek acknowledgement, restitution, and a place among the stars that was stolen from us. The paralysis field affecting your fleet will dissipate in one standard day. When it does, you have a choice. Continue this battle and discover why your ancestors feared us so deeply, or return to your capital and prepare for honest diplomatic negotiations." The transmission ended, leaving silence in its wake. On Exteris Prime, Chancellor Vexel stood before the council, his face ashen. "How did we not detect these devices on our worlds?" "Because we weren't looking," Admiral Zelvax replied quietly. "Because we believed the threat was eliminated centuries ago." For the first time in 300 years, the Galactic Confederation faced a force it could not simply conquer or destroy. Humanity had returned from extinction with power beyond comprehension and knowledge that had penetrated the very heart of their empire. In the void of space, Captain Chen watched the paralyzed Confederation fleet. Behind him, the vast armada of human ships hung like silent guardians. "Do you think they'll choose peace?" Commander Singh asked. Chen's gaze remained fixed on the enemy vessels. "Humans aren't the only ones who can adapt," he said. "They've built their civilization on domination. But even the most entrenched powers can change when survival demands it." He turned to look at his first officer, a small smile touching his lips. "And if there's one lesson humanity learned from the purge, it's that survival sometimes requires the unthinkable."